Hello there. I'm Kimberly HayDay.
And I'm Amanda Day.
And you, my friend, are listening to the Fundraising HayDay podcast,
where we cover the how-tos of grants and fundraising.
And how we can all do a better job of changing the world through philanthropy, and the world sure could use it right now.
Absolutely. So special thanks to our Patreon subscribers who help make this podcast possible. To join this amazing community with monthly playlists, a book club, and wide open mistakes were made episodes, visit patreon.com/fundraising HayDay.
So friends, listeners, country people, lend me your ears. Are you looking for affordable training in grant writing or grant management that you can participate in on your own schedule? We got you. Look no further than our lineup of on-demand offerings. If you like this podcast, if you like our ways, you're going to like the way we teach on our on-demand. I think the sound quality is much better on demand. I will tell you that. But what you hear is what you get. There are a series of audio courses or modules, in individual courses, and they're 20 to 30 minutes. So about half-ish the time of our usual podcast, especially if we're feeling ranty. I feel like these are rant-free, and they're start at just $19.99 for each of the modules in a given course, in case you look at them and you're like, well, I know about this, but not that. I know about budgets, but not goals and objectives, or whatever the case may be. Or you can save a few bucks and get all 12 courses, each in either grant writing or grant management, for $197.
Yep. And you've got an entire year to listen to the courses, or re-listen, as the case may be, once you download your selection. So check out the entire lineup on our website at haydayservices.com/shop. Y'all, we are so very excited to introduce our listeners to the first Season 9 sponsor of the Fundraising HayDay podcast. Grant Guru is the world's largest aggregator of grants and funding, and this incredible prospect research tool has made its way all the way from Australia to the United States. It's a searchable database that is updated daily, and it is so user-friendly. We're joined today by Adrian Spencer, co-founder and director of Grant Guru, to learn more about this incredible product with a mini-series during the first 12 episodes of this season. So we have loved learning about you, Adrian, and Grant Guru these past few episodes, and we would love to hear about your product, specifically what makes it unique, because you're not the only prospect research tool on the market.
Yes, that's true. Grant Guru is created by grant professionals for grant professionals, and we blend that with world-class developers and great interface design. We built the product that we wished existed. We know what grant seekers need. We know how to save time. We know how to help you find grants, and we know how to do it quickly. Nobody wants 100,000 or more grant programs. They really want to find the relevant ones that are right for them and for their clients. And professionals already know a lot of grants. They're actually looking for the ones they might be missing, the new ponds to fish in, so to speak. So we provide 3 very different approaches. We have a filter search, which provides all the filters that you might want. And this is really good for sophisticated users. This is what we really built for ourselves. But we also have a prompt search, where you can just type in your project and the IT will do the smarts to actually match the best projects to you. That's quick and easy. And we also have a browse function. Sometimes you want to do a little bit of a deep dive, you want to trawl through what's available, and you can see all the options. So Grant Guru is powerful, but it's simple. We've got lots of features you can use if you want, but we've resisted the temptation to overcook it. We've aimed for usability and practicality. We lay out all that information in a logical, simple way with everything you need to know. And we provide a bunch of tools which we just know you'll find really handy.
Nice. I can say from personal experience, I was really impressed by all the different filters because it delighted the nerd within me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Find out more about this fantastic new resource for grant seekers. Visit grantguru.com/US. You get access to a user-friendly search engine, email alerts, grants calendar, customizable grant reports, and so much more.
And as an added bonus, Grant Guru is providing our listeners with 20% off their subscription. So when you go to make your purchase, use the discount code HayDay963. That's HayDay 963.
So today we are talking about restricted word lists that you may have heard about, particularly around federal grants and possibly state grants that use federal funding. Because whether this is your first time listener, and if you are, hi, hello, welcome, or welcome back if you've been with us for a while, what impacts the federal grant sector will fall over into the state funding, since so many state grants are federal block funding. So we're going to talk about these lists. We're going to talk about how folks like you can navigate this challenge. And so it's a heavy topic, but it needs to be addressed. So we're here to do our part.
Well, throughout 2025, we saw language in federal grant opportunities and just across the federal landscape overall shift dramatically. First of all, we saw in executive orders that impacted language around things like gender ideology, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We saw, things regarding, especially DEI, started disappearing from federal websites that were mentioning different, accomplishments and different things regarding women and people of color. And so a lot of that language was pulled from public spaces. We also noticed in the Notice of Funding Opportunities, or NOFAs, or RFPs, or RFAs, whatever you call them, right? The grant guidance that comes out anytime there's a grant opportunity. There was changes in language there. And, anytime Kimberly and I teach, and anytime we do our own grant writing, we've always told people you should mimic the language in that guidance, because that's the funder is basically telling you, here's the words that we're using, so you should use it. And sometimes changes have been for the better, right? Like there's been a lot of shift lately about, rather than, saying such and such people or person, it's more like you're focusing on the person. And yes, they may have something that they're dealing with, but that's not, we're not saying homeless people anymore. It's, people who are unhoused, because they're still human beings, and that needs to be the center of the focus, right? So we're not mad that language shifts and changes, because it should, right? And new words come about all the time, and there's language shift is not a bad thing. But what's we're talking about here is words that should not be going away, that are the ones that are going away. And that's what we're concerned about in these NOFAs, where language is being much more restricted than it ever has been. Then, of course, you had early in 2025, there was an article that came out from a professor that was talking about a banned word list, or a trigger word list. Then there was lots of talk about, like, okay, where did he get that list? Is it legit? Are we seeing it actually from funders saying that? Who's making this up? So then that was a whole drama filled of, is this legit? Is it not? Grant professionals have been scrambling to rewrite grant applications based on, again, words that are appearing or maybe are not appearing in NOFAs. And so there's just been, when it comes to words, nothing has been very clear cut. But if you work in our profession, you know that there's something hinky going on, and you probably have either yourself experienced or know somebody firsthand who's had to deal with changing words, removing words. And so we're just kind of going to get into that, some examples we have and some ways to deal with that, as Kimberly said. But definitely words have been under fire. So
many different ways. So a more recent example, we're recording this January the 8th, 2026. In December 2025, there were two articles sort of covering the same topic, but really relating it to Head Start funding. So Head Start, if you're not familiar, is a federally funded program that provides quality early childhood education. There's tons of research out there about the importance of early childhood education, not just for elementary school academic performance, but longitudinal studies have shown that people who are able to get quality early childhood education all in all sorts of ways, and in socializing and sharing and compassion and colors and numbers and words and reading and all kinds of things, they truly do get that head start in life. And
Oh,
studies have shown that it can put you on a path to earning more. It can put you on a path to avoid incarceration. It can put you on a path to success far beyond school walls. Solid decades of research about this.
well, and I can tell you, my kids didn't do Head Start, but in Georgia, we have a state-funded pre-K system it's through a lottery system, and different areas have them. And I was fortunate both my kids were able to do that. And what they learned that year was immense and made kindergartens. I mean, just as a working mom, it was so nice to know that they were going into that. And my youngest she's a summer birthday. And so I was really worried about her not being ready for kindergarten. But so I went ahead and put her in that pre-K program. And her teacher, like halfway through the year, when I expressed, like, hey, she is kind of young, so it's not going to break my heart if you tell me she's not ready for kindergarten. And she was like, oh no, that girl has learned so much this year. She is rip roaring to go. And she was, right. And I think that a
She's
lot
rip roaring to this very day, ladies
she
and gentlemen.
really
I
is.
can testify. I can
This is a true
testify.
statement. But I mean, again, and I know that's anecdotally, but I can attest to how amazing
It's
those
proven.
programs are.
It's known. It's proven, and Head Start is actually even before pre-K. So
Mhm.
again, just really, it's proven stuff. Um, but when you start, and also, I'm really glad that you shared that anecdote, because it brings up an important point. When you start taking away descriptors of people and storytelling and naming who they are
Yeah.
and where they're from, it's a lot easier for certain people to stop thinking of them as people. They just become others, or and that's sort of the first step. And we're seeing this over and over. So um, in December of 2025, the Head Start program, as reported by NPR and AP, those are the two places where I found these articles. Head Start programs were told by the federal funding agency to remove nearly 200 words and phrases from funding applications or risk denial. And you may be like, wow, Kimberly, were they like writing like you? Were they big old cuss buckets that were using offensive words that needed to be cut? Not really. Let me run down a list. And I'm going to sort of look down while I'm doing this. If you're one of the 4 people watching this on YouTube, um, um, some of the restricted words included disability, tribal, advocacy, gender, anti-racist, trauma, marginalized, BIPOC, health disparity, diversity, LGBTQ, women, and there were a lot more because there were 200, and I'm not going to read it all 200. So typical things that if you have written grants before, you might be like, those are some of those are common words that might appear in a needs statement, right? Because you're defining the community to say, here are the demographics. And also maybe there's some economic information. If you're writing about health, there's some health information. And there are health disparities, but you can't say that in these grants anymore if you want to get federal funding. And, big surprise, a lot of I would say the majority of Head Start attendees might come from families that you could be described using some of these words.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
can't use words anymore to talk about any of these things, even though the populations being described by these words are and continue to experience economic and health outcome disparities that are far worse than the general population. I mean, that's just a given.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to point out here too, again, that so much in 2025, when you would try to talk about this, there would be some pushback from all kinds of people saying things like, yeah, but is that list real? I've never seen it. What funder said it? I need proof. Well, here's your proof that
Proof.
they're proof that there is a list, there is like 200 words, and it's ways to describe people. And it's, I mean, again, women and female are words you can't use. And I don't know, but as a female, that offends me greatly that I couldn't use the word female in a application, right? It's just, I liking it to, like, I think for the same reason that people ban books because they are afraid of the information and the ideas that may give people. I think the people that are banning these words is because they're afraid of, I don't know well, I don't understand what they're afraid of.
Because they don't want to fund things, and they don't want people who are not white men to have money and to do the good things. I mean, just
Yes.
come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
When a gray-headed Southern white woman can see it, and that would be me,
Yeah.
you know it's bad, because I could probably hibernate and live my whole life, but I'm calling it out because there's not a whole lot of reasons why in a grant application demonstrating
Yes.
why you can't say
Yeah.
health disparity or women.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, as grant professionals, because we write for a living, like I can't think of a single grant application unless I'm building a road, right? I can't think of a single grant application where I haven't described the people we're going to help, because
but you could in a road too, if it was opening up into if it was in a rural county and you're helping folks access healthcare, people with disabilities.
Yeah.
I mean, can you not say that? Or is it okay if they're not marginalized? Is it okay if they're not BIPOC, if there's somebody other than BIPOC? Is that okay? I mean, come on.
Yep. So, and I mean, I think words have power. They really are transformative and educational and empowering. And so stripping them is an attempt to take away that power, limiting our ideas, controlling the narrative, which is not okay.
So we have some examples that we want to go through, basically 3 different approaches, and there are many more. But the thing is, if you are, whether you're an employee or whether you're a consultant, you're going to need to have these kinds of discussions if you are seeking federal funding.
Yeah, because you got to figure out
got to figure out how to do it. So I actually had some direct experience with approach number 1 that we're just going to kind of call rolling with the punches, where I came in. It was not a primary client of mine. I came in as a peer consultant with another grant writer, and we had to alter and remove language, and we actually did it. There wasn't a specific list. This was at a time when this particular funding agency, that was not Head Start, there wasn't a list per se, but there were suggestions on what to focus on. So the RFP had been altered enough to where we were like, okay. And so we did have to take out all kinds of references. And I really don't want to go any further to what the program was or where it was located, because I want them, they deserve that money and the service they're doing. And they had decades of service and a clear history as a trusted provider of the community. So the organization, the nonprofit seeking funding, made the decision that they're going to continue to serve the folks that they're going to serve, even though if you were to describe the folks that they serve, we would hit some of these banned words from at least the Head Start RFPs, even though this was not a Head Start program. I hope that's clear. They asked to us, and we decided that it was in their best interest in this moment to alter the language in the grant proposal so that it would meet the current administration's focus areas. And so the upside is that they received the funding, but the downside is they're going to have to police everything they do or say, because the people who benefit the most from this particular program are the people that this administration doesn't even want to name. So they're doing it. I am not involved in the grant management process. I support their decision. I don't know what this is going to mean for future funding or how they talk about their funding. And then they also have private funders and individual funders that may receive messaging that is different than the messaging that was in the grant. So it wasn't telling lies. It was just being very general about the target population.
Yeah.
So I certainly I wanted them to have that money. They are wonderful stewards of the money. They have a track record of helping people in dire need live and thrive and find situations where they're safe and they can go on to be giving members of our community. You know what I mean? They'll be able to thrive. So that's one approach. I know, Amanda, you have another one that's the opposite to talk about.
Yeah. Well, before I go into that too, I'll just say like I think a lot of people are taking this route where it's just like we're serving people no matter what they are. So fine, you don't want me to name them, fine. I'll just tell you we're serving 100 people, and people are people, right? My kind of like you said, my concern about that is if the funder starts digging and going, but wait a minute, you're still doing all of these things, and you're like, yeah, but people are people. It's I'm curious to see if in the next few years if you're going to start to see people that get their funding revoked because so that's the concern of that is you may get the money and you may be able to do good things continue for a while, but just and I just be very careful about your reporting, your emails to the funders. It's just that's a hard line to toe, but no judgment for doing it because
No.
you got people that need help. I get it. So the second approach I would say is we're going to call this the pushing back approach. This is where some organizations are going, you know what? I'm not playing that game. I don't want any part of this. So I'm just not, I'm not, even though I've gotten this grant the last 5 years, we're not even going to apply for it this year. I'm taking a stand going, we don't want to do this. Some of them may apply, but they're still keeping their original language about like, hey, this is who we are and this is what we do. So the downside of that is many of them saw a reduction in federal funds because either they weren't seeking them or they most likely were not getting funded. Some people were able to make up the difference through private funding, individual donations, fundraising events. We always preach that you should have a diversified portfolio, and that grants should never be, 80% of your funding. I get it's very different if you're a small upstart please don't come at us. We understand there's always an exception to the rule, but as a general,
really different if you're a Head Start program, for example. It's really different. It's not like you're able to go out and go, hey, all you private funders and corporate sponsors, come on and pitch in, because a lot of times they're almost solely grant and they were set up to be a federal program.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of them were able to make up the difference. Not everybody was. No matter what, I'm sure people are hurting financially, because even if you're able to pick up additional funding, you may be taking it from someone else who was getting that funding, right? So it's just a lot. And there were also some pushing backs, plenty of people that were vocally saying, hey, this is wrong and we need to fight this. And which is a hard thing to do as well, to make that stand. But I certainly admire and appreciate those organizations who are willing to lead the charge, because somebody sure needs to.
Well, I think also pushing back could be also contacting, and not the L word, not lobbying, but getting to know your elected officials and go, hey, did you know that in your district we're losing $10 million in quality child care for children of your constituents?
Yeah.
Because of this administration.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, and vote this way on this bill, because that would be lobbying, right? But if you're educating, hey, did you know that and people are losing jobs in your district because of that? Your constituents and their families, children are not, lay it out there. Lay it out there. That's a way to push back that, and you might, for every call you make to your local office of your elected official, there might be some that don't care, but there might be some that listen, and you just need to be that someone. Everyone's like, someone should do something about this. We may be the someones, y'all. We may be the someone. So let's just figure out what we can do instead of waiting for somebody to fix this mess.
Yeah.
But I think that the option 3 is like, I think, Amanda, you said this was the scariest option. You'd written a blog post about this, and I concur. Is to just go, oh, There's really not a word ban. We can just keep writing. Everything's fine. And even though it's bad right now, and I don't know, in just a couple of years, 2.5, almost 3 years, everything's going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that that is just, please, if you're thinking this now, what did the children used to say? I want to hold your hand. I'm going to say this with my full chest. That's bullshit. That's high. No, that's a no.
Yeah.
Even if there is no, here are all the words, we are seeing federal agencies and um, RFPs, NOFOs, and OFAs, the grant instruction guides of many acronyms, come out with don't use this, don't do that. We are only focusing on this, not that. It's changed in the language, it's changed multiple times in many executive orders. The writing is literally on the virtual wall here. And again, I would direct you to the Project 2025, written and published by the Heritage Foundation. Some of the key creators of this plan, which has been in place long before the current administration, some of them are in key positions in our federal government right now. So if you're, and I get it, it's a 900-page document. Go to the parts that scare you the most and educate yourself. The writing, it is no longer a surprise. I don't want to see anyone go, I can't believe, because it's happening and there's evidence. And if you ignore that reality, and you're serving communities that are affected by this, not only are you putting your own organization at risk, but you're putting those communities at risk, because you're not going to be able to get them the funding to transform their lives. People want to better their lives. Let's give them the tools to get that done. And if you're just ignoring what's going on, everything is at risk when you do that.
Yep. So if you're a grant professional who's listening to this and are still with us this far, and you're like, okay, great, we've got 3 options, but what do I need to do? So think about your organization and the needs of the community you're serving, and figure out which approach best aligns to making sure your community is best served. And I get that, I would love to say everybody just needs to stop going for federal funds and call everybody out. But we are trying to be realistic here, and understanding that if the answer is you do that and you get no funds, and then you all have people who are not getting housed, who are not getting fed, who are not getting health care, and their quality of life is even worse than it already is, we get that that's not always a solution. So your organization needs to have some tough conversations about how are we going to move forward? What approach works so that we're not hurting the people that we're here to serve? You also need to think about what's financially sustainable for your organization as well. Some organizations can go, you know what, I'm not going for that because we have all of these other options. But that isn't a reality for every size and type of agency. So these are, again, tough conversations need to be had. You also need to find a way to balance both your mission with the funding reality. If you're an organization who exists to help LGBTQ, that community, and making sure that they have fair and equal rights to everybody else, that is so opposite of what this administration is spouting, that, how do you balance that? You can't just not use, just not using those words in an application. Okay, but are you then not using it on your website? Are you never using it in your speech? Are you never using it when you speak to the people you're serving? I mean, it starts to become this thing like you don't want to be so, well, we're going to have this approach over here and this approach over here. That's not being true to your mission and your organization. So that's something you need to think about as well.
I understand why you might choose to do that.
Yes.
It may not be a long-term solution, but I can totally understand why people feel their backs are against the wall and they're just trying to do what they need to do in the moment.
Yes. Yep. So, and what you do now may not be what you're still doing 10 years from now. So these are just things to think about, questions to ask. And it's not you as the grant professional who needs to make these decisions. It should be you just asking your boss, your board, your elected officials, depending on where you work, going, hey, this is where things are headed. These are things I can and can't do. What is our approach going to be, in line with Do we need the funding? Can we get funding elsewhere? What is our mission? How are we going to be as true to ourselves as possible while also still helping the people we need to help? And no matter what, think about no matter what path you do choose, think through those what the consequences are going to be. Because no matter what you choose, there's going to be some consequences. I wish I could say this is the path, and if we all take it, things will be fine and it'll be great. Because there isn't. You're taking one path where you're kind of walking a line and hoping you can get funding, or you're taking a path where you know funding is going to go away, and it's a scary thing no matter what you do. So just these are some serious conversations you need to start having now, and don't even wait till the next grant comes out. Start talking now about like, hey, moving forward, what do we want to do? And it may be one of those things that you try something and it works, and maybe you do that for a while, or maybe you try it and it fails abysmally. So you're like, okay, let's start again. But it's just conversations need to be had around federal funding for so many reasons.
Absolutely. I would also say if you're going to start, you may, and if you're, I hope by now you know that between Amanda and me, I am not the nice one. So please don't come up to me and go, but I'm just a grant writer. What can I do? I'll be like, you know what? First of all, you're not just a grant writer, and second of all, you are the expert in
Yeah.
the NOFO language.
Mhm.
You are the someone that can help. You can
Yes.
speak up. You might even get shut down on your first. It could be somebody could look at you and go, you know what, Kimberly, I just need you to write the grant and not worry so much about politics. We just need this money. You just need to get us this money. Even so, you could write a wonderful grant and dodge all those verbal bullets and get that money. It's still going to cause problems down the road. And it is, as a professional, grown ass person, it is your duty to try and try again. And it may probably will take more than one timid email or one uncomfortable conversation. It's going to do all of that. So it's going to take multiple times to get your point across. So and I feel you as an introvert, I feel you, but these are times where you need to use your superpowers of research and documentation and maybe being comfortable in one-on-one conversations and talking points and charts and stuff to talk about how this language has changed, how to document if your current grant federal grant has been denied, documenting everything, keeping records, asking for scores and feedback to bolster. If your grant is denied because you are addressing populations that they don't want to address, and you have that in writing, and there are people to whom you report who are either elected officials or board members or executive directors that don't believe it, it's like, and here's the proof. Because if you're listening to this, you're in fundraising, you're in grant writing in some capacity, and you know it's all about documenting. So make sure that you do that. If at all possible, I know that there may be another government shutdown coming up soon, because why not 2026? But in the meantime, if there are still people in the agencies that fund in those offices, you can reach out to them and understand what the expectations might be. Perfectly reasonable. If there are technical assistance webinars, y'all know the drill. Show up and ask your questions. And you can, if the questions get answered in the chat or in the recording, download that and save that so that you have documentation of what people are talking about. And whenever possible, and it may not always be possible, and I'm thinking about Head Start programs, but if it is possible within your program, really have the discussion about diversifying funding. Diversifying funding does not mean that the grant professional just writes more grants. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, yeah, you want to explore the granting opportunities, but if they're partnership opportunities, collaboration with other agencies, if it makes sense, and it doesn't make sense for every nonprofit, and it certainly doesn't make sense for every local government to do individual fundraising, right? If you're a local government agency, maybe you want to think about starting a foundation, which is not a piece of cake, and there's a lot involved to it, but that can be a way to bring in help for your libraries and your schools and other programs from private funders, from individual funders, or from corporate and family foundations that give to 501c3 organizations and not government agencies. So just exploring that conversation and also just connecting with other grant professionals in your area. Amanda is the queen of connectivity. And it is really important to reach out and share, because if we're all quietly cowering in our own little cubicles or home offices or wherever it is that you do your work and we're not sharing, then people who are trying to make oppressive, hurtful changes will win because we're not sharing information.
Yeah. I'd argue that you're not the mean one. You're just giving the tough love, and somebody needs to do that. So.
I don't know. It depends on the day. It just depends on the day for me, but I appreciate you, friend.
Yep. So, kind of why this matters at the end of the day, as grant professionals, as Kimberly says, we are not just, I'm just a grant professional. We are storytellers first and foremost, and stories have so much power. That is why anytime someone teaches a class about grant writing, they will tell you, if you have space, and the way, the best way to make the most impact is not just to share stats and statistics, but tell the stories of the people in the communities that you're serving, right? That's what matters the most. And so that's our job. And it's really hard to tell complete and accurate stories when our hands are tied, but we've got to find a way to be able to do it, whether it's we're busting out of those chains and we're saying we don't care, or whether it's we're retooling language, or whether it's whatever the answer is, right? So we've got to find a way to still be able to tell the stories of the people that we're serving and why assistance is needed. So it's, if you've got some creative solutions with creative language, as long as you're not compromising the truth, I say there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's really important too for us to continue to remember why we do this work in the first place. I don't think most of us do this because, hey, I like to just sit and write all day. I think I do. I mean, I think most of us do like the writing, but like for me, the writing is not why I do it. It's the changes that I get to see and how proud I am to be able to say, not that I fixed anything, but just to be like, I played a tiny role in making the community where I work better. And that just, whether it's I've helped people get health care, whether it's I've helped build a park and I see kids playing in it. It's, it makes my heart swell to see that I, was one person in a cog of many, 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 many people, including the community members themselves, that helpful play a role in that. So I think it's important that through all of this, we remember that. Because otherwise it can be easy to get so bogged down and frustrated that we just all walk away. And which I'm not saying if it's gotten to the point where you need to walk away, I'm not saying, no, how dare you? I get that. But my fear is that so many good grant professionals are just going to wash their hands of all of this. And that's not good for our nation.
Clearly, it's a challenging time. It's to have these kinds of conversations. There's no right answer, no one perfect solution for all organizations or even any organizations. I would just hope that you are able to move a conversation forward, be that thought leader, be that person that brings up, here are the ramifications, so that there are intentional choices instead of just scrambling like so many of us have done. Certainly I did in nonprofit work from time to time. You're scrambling to just try and get money in the door. And you're all doing really important work. And it's hard work, and it can be taxing and challenging. And we see you and we hear you, and we've been there, and I just want you to know that. And I want you to figure out some things and let us know what works and what doesn't work. We just love to hear from you. And we'll just keep doing what we're doing and connecting with you here, connecting with you and Patreon and our newsletter, and wherever we see you. And I just really appreciate you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thanks again to today's sponsor, Grant Guru. If you want to learn more about this incredible new tool to the grant prospect research market, visit grantguru.com HayDay.com/US. You'll find the link in our show notes.
And remember, they are providing a 20% off discount code on your subscription. So when you go to make your purchase, enter the code HayDay963. That's HayDay 963.
So we'd love to hear from you. Again, you can email us at hello@haydayservices.com. The good, the bad, the ugly, let us know. We're on LinkedIn. We would love to hear for how you're weathering this, what solutions, or good news too, because they're beautiful, wonderful things that are happening every day as a result of grant funding in the nonprofit and local government sector, or just in the world in general. So let's just keep those connections going.
Yep. And, this was a tough topic to address, mostly because we can't come in and be like, here's your answer, but it's one that we need to have the conversations about. So we really, really appreciate every time you join us on the podcast episode, but we're certainly honored you're here with us today. We hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks. We're going to talk some about career tips for grant writers and grant managers who are actually employees of organizations versus doing work as a consultant. So we hope you'll join us then, and we'll see you there.
See ya.